Hello everyone, welcome to another pulse-pounding edition of ARG Presents. I am Amigo Aaron, joined as always by a man who's seen it all in the video game world and understood about half. The Brent.
Half. That's pretty generous, actually.
Well, I'm trying to boost you up here in the intro, man. How you doing this week?
I have had a wonderful and miserable week both.
Tremendous. So pretty much par for the course.
That's it.
Par for the course.
That's it.
So, if you joined us last week, you will recall we spun the wheel. We made the deal, and this week we'll be playing games on the very popular Game Boy Advance platform. Yes. Now, Brent, as always, have you ever owned a Game Boy Advance?
I did. I had one. I loved it. I had 15 or so games for it. Probably a system I've had more games for than any other system, because the Nintendo era I rented, the Nintendo and Super Nintendo era, in Nintendo 64 I was too poor, and after that I pretty much went to computer games.
Very good, very good. And do you recall any of your favorites that you played on that system?
Absolutely. Street Fighter Alpha.
Yeah, I played that. That was really good.
That is probably my favorite. It also has some great role-playing games, Golden Sun, some great tactical games like Advanced Wars. It was an all-around system, and that's probably why it was so popular.
It was. So let's talk briefly about the Game Boy Advance. So,
excellent.
Of course, the Game Boy Advance, manufactured by Nintendo, coming off of their popular Game Boy series with the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color.
Yes.
And so it was time for the Game Boy Advance. This debuted in Japan on March 21st, 2001, and in North America, June 11th, same year. And of course, our friends in Europe had to wait a few extra weeks. They got theirs June 22nd, 2001.
In hindsight, really though, that's pretty good.
Right? Yeah. That was pretty good. When this thing debuted, it was $99 US.
Cheap.
So today's
cheap.
By today's standards, $142,
which
still
I think is
pretty good
very
deal.
reasonable.
Yeah. So this was an incredibly popular unit, as you would imagine, and it was packed a lot in a small package. It was not a big unit. It had a 2.9-inch reflective thin film transistor LCD screen.
Yep. Pretty cutting edge at the time.
Yeah. It ran on 2 AA batteries.
Yes.
And battery life from Nintendo itself was around 15 hours, depending on the game you were playing.
And that's a little exaggerated, but it would go for a long, long while.
This thing had an ARM processor. And, you know, the funny thing about the Game Boy, for all of its ballyhoo, to me, it had one fatal flaw. And I think it was to a lot of people, it was a fatal flaw. It was, once again, a Nintendo system that had no backlight on it.
Yeah.
And so I remember taking one of these on a trip that I bought. I must have borrowed it from you, or I bought it from somebody, and I had Tony Hawk. I'm like, man, I'm on this bus. I'm going to play the heck out of Tony Hawk. And literally, I could not see the screen. It was due to the amount of brightness. I couldn't see what was going on. And that was always a flaw with me from back in the day. And it was sort of the Achilles heel of this unit, wouldn't you say?
Well, that's the thing. Later on, they actually had backlight mods for these that I never actually put on, but even at the time I was very intrigued by. It was towards the end of the lifespan of the unit that I found out about them, but man, if they would have had easy mods when the unit came out, they would have sold 1 million of them.
Yeah. So this unit ended up selling, the Game Boy Advance, as you know, one of the all-time great sellers.
Yes.
Along with all the Game Boys really have sold pretty well. But this thing, according to reports I read, it sold around just over 80 million units.
Wow.
That's amazing to me. That's the Game Boy Advance series. That includes a couple of the variants which we'll talk about. But
you know what?
Impressive.
For a in between going from the Game Boy to the DS, I mean that's a long time span, mind you. But I don't think they were really going for a unit to last as long as it did. Personal opinion, maybe they thought it was going to last 100 years, but I think they did enough to get these things in people's hands, and it was more popular than it had any right to be.
Well, these were good little units in terms
they
of
were
durability,
awesome.
and we'll say not having a backlight. You don't have to worry about the backlight going out. That's
Yes.
for sure. They also were very clever, and these had backwards compatibility. Now, talk
Yes.
about that. Did you play any of the old stuff on this?
Absolutely, because I had a Game Boy.
Yeah.
And you still got the faux collars. You had 4-color palette. You could kind of play with it a little bit with your old GBA or GB games.
And it does also GB color as well, Game Boy Color, yeah.
Which those I never had any of.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember Monopoly, WWF Wrestling was one. Boy, that game was horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I played a lot of the old Game Boy games in my GBA.
So get this, the Game Boy Advance was around for quite a while. The last ever released title in Japan was Final Fantasy VI Advance.
Yes.
And it was released in November of 2006.
Tactics over
That's
here.
quite a run.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In America, it looks like in Europe, the last game released was The Legend of Spyro: The Eternal Night in 2007. In America,
Wow.
the last game released was Samurai Deeper Kyo, which was released in February of 2008. So this system had releases up to 2008, which that's impressive.
I would love to know sales number on that game.
I don't know.
They'd had to have been low.
Don't know. So, of course, when it's Nintendo, they don't sit on rest on their laurels. They've got to put out, so they got to tweak it and re-release it. And so they released a couple little variants to this. One being the Game Boy Advance SP. Do you remember this particular
clamshell?
one?
Yep.
It had a brighter LCD screen, among other things, and it had a light on it. This thing was I've seen the SP. I think that's sort of the if that's the one you want now. I think
that's the natural stepping
Right.
stone to where Nintendo ended up with the DS.
Right. And then, of course, the last one they released, this thing was not popular, and it was baffling as to why they released it, was the old Game Boy Micro.
Yeah, when I saw it, that was never something I thought I would want.
Mm-hmm.
I've got small hands, so that wasn't the issue.
Yeah.
The small screen, I don't think would have bothered me a ton. Just the premise of it seemed odd.
It was a very Japanese system.
It was. It
had,
was.
as I recall, it had some kind of like exchangeable face plates or something.
Yeah, it had a lot of gimmicks like that, and it was. And when it says micro, it was micro. It was tiny.
Yeah. The game, another game they had was they had it in a million different colors. There were all kinds of different colors, and some are rarer than others. That's another Nintendo trademark. They love doing
and that doesn't float my boat, but I know some people get all giddy over it.
Now, I believe there were a few games that you could use on the Game Boy, on the GameCube, I believe it was, that you could hook the Advance to with a link cable, and you can use those as well, which is kind of nutty.
Yep, I never did it. But I was aware it was out there.
I knew you could do it, but it's a lot like the TurboGrafx 8-player games. Like, could you do it? Yes, but how many people do you know that are going to sit around playing this stuff?
Or the Neo Geo. That's what we discussed.
Yeah, no kidding. So I just thought this is kind of interesting here. So I got a list here of the top 10 games released on it and their sales numbers.
Okay.
And I'm just going to run over a couple of these, but because
they're going to be about half Pokemon games.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
So you've got Yoshi's Island at 10, Pac-Man Collection, which I thought was interesting, at 9.
Wow.
This is another interesting one here. At number 8, the Namco Museum.
Whoa.
Yeah, and these both sold at near 3 million units.
Shocked on the Yoshi one. I understand. Shocked on those other two.
In fact, the rest of these are almost exactly what you would think would be up here. Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Advance, Super Mario World, it's the Super Mario Advance 2. Then you've got Mario Kart at 4, and then you've got the top 3: Pokemon Emerald, Pokemon Red, Fire Red, and Leaf Green, and number 1, and I think everyone would know this one, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. This game sold 16 million copies, which is unbelievable.
In fact, I'm surprised there were so many Mario games.
Yeah, well, listen, Nintendo knows how to work on their own stuff. They always have. They've always been top of the heap. Those Namco offerings were surprising to me, though, that those got that high. So that goes to show you that even back when those were released, that was in 2001, both of them, there was a hunger for the retro aspect of the games, you know?
That brings up an interesting point.
Yeah.
Seeing that those games sold so many, and that was at a time when emulation was still in its infancy, not nearly as widespread, at least,
I'll give
as
you
it
that.
is. I wonder if the claim that emulation kills some of these retro titles is valid.
Well, listen, I've been at the forefront of this little debate for a long time, and to prove that, let's face facts, retro is hotter now than it's ever been.
Oh, certainly. Right? Well, it's because the age group's up to the point where they can go back. If
I may wax for a moment, you've got your people like the MAME team, your people that work on a lot of these emulators. I mean, a lot of these guys have been around the block for a long time.
Sure.
And the argument is that these people didn't hurt you; they helped you.
Yes.
Because they kept these titles around for a core audience.
Yes.
And it's a core audience that's often willing to pay money for titles they've owned 10 times.
That's very true.
Even myself, as cheap as I am, have gotten some of these retro titles because it's handy. And sometimes you want to support certain, like I remember buying a package with a joystick that had a lot of the Capcom ROMs. Well, I had all the Capcom ROMs, but it's nice to actually legally own the Capcom ROMs. So I think if you're going to point fingers and say you're killing me, you're killing my industry because you're, I don't think it's ever been panned out in a real world number.
And to be fair, I certainly wasn't saying that. Emulation is one of those things where Pac-Man would not be as popular today if you couldn't emulate him from his glory days.
I think Pac-Man's not the best example. Let's say like Shinobi, just something out of, or let's say like Mr. Do, something like that, where it's like, listen, these are old arcade games. They could have went away. They weren't like Mr. Do wasn't super popular when it came out. It was pretty popular, but I mean, or Bubble Bobble, stuff like that. That stuff has came forward. And part of the reason is it's been kept alive by a core group that play it, have played it for decades now.
And I agree. I certainly think emulation is more of a boon than a hindrance. But just those statistics make you think a little bit.
It's funny. I meant to mention this last week, but when we did the Neo Geo, I remember when Neo Geo first became an emulated property in MAME, right? Mm-hmm. It was very controversial because at the time a Neo Geo machine still existed in the world and people were still using them. And people were like, listen, why are we emulating things that are currently available? Well, then you get into a whole different area there. But I mean, even then,
I remember the biggest debate was you can't emulate things that are X amount of years old,
right?
And they wouldn't release the ROMs for them. Well, I remember that very vividly.
They did it. Also, the Neo Geo ROMs were a lot larger than most of the arcade ROMs, so that was sort of a deal that they had. And but they did it. Did it hurt Neo Geo? I don't think it hurt them at all. I think it helped them. They still are around. They still are releasing properties, and it's partially because that their name has been kept alive by the fans.
And I would say largely in part.
And how many people are going to buy the new Neo Geo Mini gimmick, the little box?
Pocket?
How many are going to buy that weren't even around when Neo Geo was in the arcade? Almost everybody's going to know. I mean, I think most of the people that would buy that now are people that weren't probably playing video games back in those days. Someone weren't even born.
I disagree.
You think?
I think the biggest buyer of those are going to be people who played and remembered the Neo Geo fondly. And even though they can go and they know how to do ROMs and emulation, they're still going to get it because, just like you said, they're supporting the property. Not the developers, that ship has long since sailed, but the property and the essence of it is what they're supporting.
You're right. You might be true there. But all I'm saying is the continual being put aloft by the emulation community, the Neo Geo, introduced a lot of people to the Neo Geo that would not have been able to play it in the 90s.
I agree.
So
yeah,
there you go. So
back to that, now that rant is over.
All that aside, so as we mentioned this week, we were playing games that were selected on the Game Boy Advance. Again, not a system I ever owned, but I have played one now and again. So we chose a couple winners this week, and I'm gonna lead the charge with my selection. Now,
go right ahead.
I will say, both of the games that we picked this week, I've not ever heard of them or played them until this week. So it was a brand new. It was the sun rose on a new day for old A.
And let me tell you something. It's always fun to go and find new games.
It's sometimes fun. Sometimes it's not
fair
fun.
Enough.
So my choice this week was Wade Hickson's Counterpunch. First off, that's a bad name. That's a horrible name because the first thing I did was look up who Wade Hickson was. I thought, is this guy like Tony Hawk? Or is he, and he's like nobody. He's a made-up character for this game. See, when you see, like, I'm a boxing fan, so I was like, Wade Hickson, who the heck's that? Well, he's nobody.
Well, yeah, fictional. He's fictional.
So This was a game developed by an outfit called Inferno Games, right? So I looked up Inferno Games, and as far as I could tell, they've never done anything before or since. Now, there is an Inferno Games. They do have a game, an indie game out called like Battle World or something, but I don't think... I could not see any correlation between this Inferno Games and that Inferno Games.
Yeah.
So if there is one, I apologize, but I couldn't see... I think it's just the name that they picked. And I don't know... I could find 0 on Inferno Games, which I can imagine Wade Hickson had a great part of their demise. This game came out in North America March 15th, 2004. So sort of late to the party.
Yeah.
And in Europe, October 1st, 2004. And it is a single-person boxing game. All right? So, why did I pick Wade Hickson's Counterpunch? Well,
I know why.
I looked around on the Game Boy. I was like, you know what? Because I picked a real dud when we did the last portable. I picked that Load Runner game, which was no good. And so I thought, well, this time out, I'm going to try to get something that at least I can have a modicum of interest in. And so I did a little bit of research this time. And I thought, what's a game that I really like? And so one of my all-time favorite Nintendo games on every platform, by the way, they've never let me down, all right, was the Punch-Out series.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of the Punch-Out series. I even used to play Punch-Out clone on the old Coco back in the day. You know, love me some Punch-Out. I used to play it in the arcade.
Yep.
We've almost had the arcade machine in once or twice, you know,
Yes.
back when you could afford it.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, this looks good. The name caught my eye, and the fact that it was a boxing game sealed the deal. So, what is this game? Well, it's a goofy game. Let's go there for starters. It's a boxing game with like with a background. So, in the game, you play a Wade Hickson boxer. You're not really a boxer. You're just driving through this town.
No, he's a boxer.
Well, he is, but I mean, it doesn't allude to anything in the opening that this guy is about. Oh, he does drive with boxing gloves on. But something you'll know in this game is like everyone wears boxing gloves all the time in this town.
Yeah, that's it. They're always ready for a fight.
So there's a intro movie where Wade Hickson breaks down his car, and so he calls a tow truck, and the guy's like, "Why don't you go over to this bar while I'm fixing your car and wet your whistle?" And he's like, "Okay." He goes over there, and then instantly he gets in a fight with a big guy, like a big
lumberjack type guy.
So,
but it was actually a trash collector.
Mm-hmm. And so you're basically thrust into the game. And so this is a weird game that has some sort of storyline. I mean, it's a loose storyline. And the storyline is you just go around fighting guys for money. That's the storyline. So,
well, he's kind of a reluctant because after you defeat the first guy, the head of the town, the Don of the town, it's like, hey, like people will pay to see your scrawny butt go up against my mega fighters. Yeah. So, like, you go do that. And he's like, I don't really want to. He's like, well, you think about it while you fight my next guy. He's like, what?
and one thing about your guy is, you know, if you play the Punch-Outs, the guy that you play at, I mean, he's not the biggest. Sometimes he's a little Mac.
Little Mac.
But I mean, he doesn't look that. Wade Hickson looks like he's a lot like Glass Joe.
He's very scrawny. You know?
And everyone he fights in this is bigger and more awesome looking than him. Yes. He's a pathetic looking.
He's generic.
Crazy hair, you know, thin, big gloves. So, like Brent said, you end up in this bar and you end up fighting a garbage collector, and his name is Rocco McScrub. Okay, so once you're thrown into Rocco McScrub, you will. He's a hobo biker. It says here. Who I guess that bag of trash and stuff he picked up because he's a hobo. So you fight this guy and then you're in the game. So what is the game? Well, this game, if you ever played Punch-Out, it's exactly the same, more or less, with a couple twists.
It's the same premise.
So
you in the foreground, your enemy in the background.
You've got basically a left and a right on your buttons, and you can use the controller to whether you're going to swing low or swing high. The big hard to understand why they did it this way difference is in Punch-Out, in all the Punch-Outs, when your opponent throws a punch, you'll dodge to the side that he's basically punching on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this one, you go the exact opposite way.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. That one minor change is unbelievably difficult to understand. It makes the game. Once I got used to it, I did okay. But
Yeah.
man, the first couple fights, and unlike say Punch Out, where you go up and you fight Glass Joe or that old guy, I can't remember his name. You just crush them, right?
Even if you have no idea what's going on.
Rocco
you just hit
McScrub
buttons.
will destroy you. He's
hard.
not a wimp. He's also got a special attack where he opens his trash bag and a raccoon jumps out and jumps on your head.
Scratches your face.
Yeah,
off,
it hurts. It hurts. So you've got to be very careful with just him right out of the gate. And so, like Brent says, once you beat him, the Don basically comes up and says, and Don is a lot like your typical boxing promoter. He's a scumbag.
Yeah.
You know, he comes up and wants you to be a boxer for him. Now, this game, if it was just that, it would be okay. But they do add some interesting twists to it that make it a little more interesting. For starters, you sort of have a free roam of the city after the first fight to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like you can sort of, especially after you beat some of the guys, you can kind of go around different places, and each guy has sort of his own like territory, and you go into.
It's the map screen is a stage select screen.
Right there, yeah. When I say free roam, you're not walking through town.
Yeah,
it's where you pick, but it lets you pick where you want to go. Now, unlike a Punch Out, you'll fight the same guy a bunch of times. You can fight him over and over if you want.
Yep, you can just keep beating on the same guy, and he seems to get a little more not difficult, but he lasts longer. He's got more because there is no TKO in this game.
Yeah, you guys can get up 8-9 times.
Yeah,
and do.
Yeah,
and that's something else that gets real old. There are a lot of things in this game that you can tell that they use to prolong the length of the game, and they're not necessarily good things. So the second guy I ended up fighting was Sweetness. Now Sweetness was great. He's a pimp. You go into his pimp
straight
world.
up pimp.
He's straight up pimp, and he talks like Snoop Dogg, and he looks cool. He's got a big robe, but he looks like a scrawny pimp. But he's and his big moves, he backhands you, which I think, so I thought it was great. But basically, when you beat these guys, you get money. I believe it's $20 is what you end up earning. It's not very much. And then you can use the money to go back and basically pay someone to teach you new moves.
Yeah.
Now,
like power moves.
I didn't get like a ton of the new moves, but I got some new moves.
Yeah.
And the new moves are like, there's some real powerful ones where you kind of jump up in the air and do this big thing. And it's a bunch of crazy moves that you can use it's sort of like the super KO punch and Punch Out.
And the game has the same kind of star mechanic where except instead of in Punch Out where you hit him at the right time, you get a star. In this game, you fill up a meter, and when your meter is full, you can do a special move.
Right, exactly. So a few of the other guys in here now, I got to fight a couple of these guys for the rest of these, but not all of them. So one of the guys is Jobu. He's a African tribal assassin that gets mad when you step on his flowers in his garden.
Which is fair enough.
He also knows voodoo. Did I mention that?
Well, who doesn't when you're named Jabu?
This guy here, Gus Incubus, the Prince of Darkness. He lives in a volcano, and he likes hot dogs.
Yeah.
He's another big, weird guy.
Hot dogs, they taste a little evil. But
now, this chick I liked, Mimi Lee.
I knew you would.
She's a raver, and she has glow sticks that she fights. It's every once in a while, the lights go off. And so you've got to sort of dodge the glow sticks, which is... the play mechanic is pretty cool. She's the only lady boxer in the game.
And just to note, everyone has their own little special move like that. Like the Gus, the devil guy, breathes fire.
Yeah.
Jabu. I never actually saw Jabu's because I always countered it.
Yeah.
But
some of these guys, once you get the gimmick, they're not that tough. Like, I didn't have any trouble. I had more trouble with the Rocco than I did the Pimp, for example. I didn't think the Pimp was very tough.
Well, see, I never lost to Jabu.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I just crushed him over and over and over.
Then you've got the evil version of yourself.
Yes.
Evil. Now, this guy, I didn't get to fight him. Did you get to fight him?
I did not.
He basically looks like you, except he's has less colors. Basically, he's
gray. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just I believe to get to this guy, you have to have you have to take a certain drink at the bar.
Yeah, basically, it's you getting drunk, and it's the evil essence of you. You're fighting your evil essence.
Sort of like in Army of Darkness, where you had to fight evil Ash, right? Remember?
Yes. Yep.
You're good, Ash. I'm bad, Ash. You know. Then you see this guy a bunch of times, and I never got to him either. Killa Gorilla. He's a literal gorilla.
Yeah, silverback.
He's a 500-pound gorilla, and he dresses in like a tux, basically.
Yeah.
Like a chauffeur or something. And then you eventually you end up fighting Don, who's he's the big man that owns the whole thing. He's the one that signed in the first place, but I never got anywhere near him. So
I couldn't, and the only reason why I didn't get to your Shadow U and the gorilla, I could not beat the Raver. She's real. So
she's
fast.
Quick. Yeah, she's real fast. And this game, I mean, literally, you have to be a lot quicker than you have to do a Punch Out with his patterns. I mean, even on the first guy, you've got to dodge at just the exact right time. There's a very small window of opportunity to make that dodge. And when you've played a game for 20, 30 years that you're used to, and all of a sudden it's reversed, it makes it real tough.
Yeah, it really does.
So aside from going to these different places to fight these different characters, aside from buying your special moves in your training, you can also do a couple shady things. I thought this was kind of funny. So there are three basic ways that you can use money to your advantage, right? One thing you can do is you can pay off the ring card girl, you know?
Yeah.
And she'll come out and distract your opponent, and then you can basically pummel him.
Yeah. Free stun.
Right. Which I always thought that was kind of funny. And then you can also you can basically you can go to the bar and you can talk to the barkeeper and get inside information for $10, and he'll tell you some help.
Tips, yeah.
And then you can also go to the body shop and you can hire the guy there for $10, and he'll throw a wrench at your opponent when you're in the middle of the match. I never did that.
I didn't do that one either.
Oddly
enough.
But I like the fact that you can. And the funny thing about the ring card girl is, and I found this out, you could, because I was getting crushed so many times. I hired her a lot when I had the money, and she would even distract the other girl, the Raver.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the ring card girl is not a bathing beauty.
No.
You know, it's funny when she walks over and everybody whistles. I thought they missed an opportunity there to throw some different ring card people in. I thought, like in a different venues, because she's everywhere.
Yeah.
These matches can go on for a while too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I think that was actually my biggest problem with the game is since there's no TKO system, I got to the point where I fought Jabu so many times, I would knock him down 10, 12 times in a round, and he would still get up. It's like, man, just stay down.
Yeah, and it's... You would think... No, you wouldn't think that would be fun because it's not fun, really.
No, it gets a little tedious.
Yeah. When these guys get up for that 6th or 7th time, you're just like, come on, man, let me move on and get my $20.
And then when the round ends, it has the same Punch-Out style scene where you're sitting in your corner and he's sitting in his corner. And if you've been beaten up worse, you have like the bloody picture, and it has little quips. Yeah. And then when you come back to the game, your healths are the exact same as when you went to the corner, which I thought was a little odd. But it seems to reset the knockdown, at least to some extent, because I've knocked down some people in round 2 like 8 or 9 times, and they still not stay down.
Well, the funny thing is the bartender's the ref.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's why when you pay him, he'll like basically count slow for you.
Yeah.
But
something else to note.
Yeah.
There are times you can't get up.
Well, when you get knocked down for the 4th time, you're done. You're done.
Yeah. Even if you hit your buttons, get all your health back because it has that gimmick, you still, even if you're at full health, you still stay down.
And that's kind of a bummer that they can get up 20 times and you can't. You know, but there you go.
But there's the aspect of the game.
Another thing you can do that I thought was strange is that if you have some money, you can buy the referee different types of hats.
Yeah.
Did you notice this?
Yeah.
So I wrote down some of the crazy hats you can buy this guy. There's basically a gold miner hat, a rocker hat, a biker, doctor. I mean, there's a ton of these things. There's sombreros, derbies. There's a Ming Dynasty style hat. There's all kinds of. There's like a pilgrim hat. You know, it's a ton of these things. I thought to myself, what an odd thing to put in the game.
And there was like literally like 24 hats you can unlock. But that is...
They don't do anything.
No, they're just cosmetic for the ref, not even for your character. But it's their way of adding to the longevity of the game.
Yeah.
Because there's only 7 fighters, and since you don't fight them in any sort of order, if you get hung up on one, you can just go beat the crap out of the one you can beat over and over and over and over to get money.
And it's like playing Punch Out, and like I'm going to beat up Glass Joe like 30 times.
And now another thing
Except
you can
Glass
do
Joe's a lot harder.
that you didn't mention, you'll get pages every once in a while because the Don gives you a pager.
Yeah.
And you can accept these challenges that are sort of like little mini games, like can you beat this guy without dodging punches? You can only block punches. Or can you dodge my punches for 20 seconds? Which that is kind of fun too.
It's another trick to extend gameplay.
It is, but at least that's a little bit different because in those matches, if it's can you beat me without dodging, all you have to do is knock them down once and they're done. So that's kind of nice.
This is your classic, like they do every trick in the book to extend the game. Add little gimmicks and the little challenges. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, the challenges are okay, but I mean, in the end of the day, this game needed more fighters.
Yeah,
desperately more. I know this is a GBA game, so they have size limitations on the guys. But I would like to have seen at least a couple more fighters, and this game has some style. We'll give it that. But I mean,
I like it. I thought the graphics were very nice.
The graphics were nice. The sound was good. It had good music.
Yeah.
It was. There's a lot to like about the game, but I think some of the core stuff they sort of botched. I really think making you dodge the wrong way was not the best move they could have made. I mean, listen, if you're going to be a punch-off clone, just clone that sucker. I like the idea of buying different techniques. That was something that Punch-Out hasn't done. I thought that was fun.
Well, and adds a slight, not really role play aspect, but it's an upgrade aspect, and it makes you go, man, as soon as I get that $100, I'm going to buy that. Or as soon as I get, and the power punches aren't so overpowered that you have to use them or you're never going to win.
Right.
But they're pleasing to look at. They're fun to get off. And they do add variety to it. And also you can counterpunch. Did you get that ability?
Yes.
Which is kind of neat, and that also adds another aspect to the game. So this had all the makings of a really good game. It just seems like they ran out of time, or maybe the developer ran out of budget money and said, okay, we have to ship this.
I will say the aesthetic, the art package is goofy. It may not be everyone's cup of tea. It's more Ren and Stimpy than it is Punch-Out or something like that.
No,
I'm not the biggest fan of that.
Not the gross part of Ren and Stimpy, just
like the art style.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I mean, I like a more traditional cartoony, but I mean, it's not. It doesn't kill the game for me.
No.
I like the way the Punch-Out guys look more than the guys in this.
With a few exceptions, like the Rave Girl and the Pimp, I thought those had really, really refined. I thought they looked good. I thought their animations.
I think you picked
good.
the two best ones.
Yeah, and again, I'm certainly not downing the art direction of this game. I just wish there was more. I wish there was more to do. You could easily, even from an extreme novice just picking up the game, I think you could probably go all the way through the game, learn the fighters, buy all the moves, maybe not all the hats because that gets really expensive. And probably like 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, I don't think it's a long game. When this released, it got pretty decent reviews. I mean, they're not horrible. Metacritic gives it a 78 out of 100, which is sort of an amalgamation of scores. Game Informer gave it a 7.5 out of 10. GameSpot, 7.8 out of 10. Games TM gave it 7 out of 10. You can see a trend here. Nintendo Power gave it a 4.1 out of 5, which that's pretty high. So it did good. It was nominated as GBA Game of the Month by GameSpot when it came out, which is okay. Its original release, it went through several name changes before they settled on the. And another thing I think they botched was the name.
The game is certainly Counterpunch, because if you try to throw your punch first, it ain't going to work.
Yeah, it was at one time it was going to be known as Sadistic Boxing. And
I think that's a little.
That's a horrible name. This is the name I would have went with, Sucker Punch. That's a much better name than Wade Hickson's Counterpunch. Also, it was known as Counterpunch, and the demo versions of the game were known as Wade Hickson's Counterpunch Minigame. So
That's a horrible name. That's
Yeah.
even worse than what they went with.
Naming the game Wade Hickson was a huge mistake in my opinion. I think that hurt them. I think if you named this Sucker Punch, you got something. I mean, just the name alone, I think is a bad idea because, like I said, naming it out of an in-game character that no one knows, that gives it no weight, and it doesn't help it in any way. It's not like this is Mario's Punch-Out or Luigi's Mansion. This is Wade Hickson. No one knows who the hell Wade Hickson is.
I will agree with you, but if you notice on the box art, his name is very small and Counterpunch is very large.
Right, but I mean, still, in media, they're going to call it that, and it's not going to. I think it was a poor choice of name. This game had several poor choices that hindered it. They didn't do it. Like, I wonder why they did some of the things they did. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, again, I'm a Punch-Out fan. This is like more guys from Punch-Out. Just like I said, we used to play a Coco version of Punch-Out, and I liked it too. And it had different wacky guys, so I'm all for wackiness. This is not a super pricey game. I saw one go sealed, $40.
Wow.
I saw $18 and loose cartridges, $15 to $30. So. You can get lucky and get a box cheap.
I think $15 would be a steal for this game.
Oh yeah. In fact, I looked around. I thought about getting a Gameboy Advance and buying it. I was like, what am I doing? By the way, just in case you're an emulator, I played this on my PSP and it plays without any trouble. So.
Yeah, I can believe it.
So there you go. So that was Wade Hickson's Counterpunch. Now we're gonna move
fun game
from the ridiculous to the whatever that you got. Brent, tell them what you picked.
Okay, let me tell you something.
Disclaimer.
No. I had a rough week this week. I've got a son who is an artist who is really having trouble finding inspiration. I've got a daughter who is brilliant, and she's got a jerk of a boyfriend. $1,000 in vet bills this week. Wife is all concerned about money, and then the engine blows up in my car. You know what, though? I woke up early this morning, laying in bed before the sun came up, thinking about Urban Yeti. And as the sun peaked over the West Virginia mountains, and I got a grasp of what Urban Yeti really was, it finally struck me to its genius. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crap.
Yeah.
But let me tell you.
Yeah.
Urban Yeti. This is a game that was developed by Cave Barn Studios.
The name does not instill confidence.
That's
Cave Barn.
And it was published by Telegames. Telegames usually does like poker or card type games. That's what they certainly do now.
From what I saw, I thought maybe they made shoes or something. Something that was completely unrelated to the video game field.
But they certainly, they're not afraid to give wacky ideas a chance.
Mm-hmm. They should be afraid.
And Cave Barn Studios, as the story goes, the rumored story, because I don't know if any of this was ever officialized.
Officialized?
That's right. They were sitting around their office, and they were like, man, they were shooting out crap ports, or they actually the Cave Barn Studios name only has this to their credit that I'm aware of. But they're sitting around their office, and they said, man, that we're doing all these crap games. Let's do a game we want to do. And they sat down, they collaborated with our little group, and they came up with Urban Yeti. For those who haven't played it, Urban Yeti has a top-down perspective, sort of like the old Grand Theft Auto games.
1 and 2, yeah.
And Urban Yeti longs for the loving embrace of... Man, even the posters couldn't handle that one. They long for the loving embrace of a female Yeti.
Uh-huh.
And as he's roaming the cityscape, he hears in the distance, what is that? It's a female Yeti calling her mating call. And the game is him desperately trying to reach her. Unfortunately, while the premise might sound intriguing to some, the gameplay, the graphics, the sound, it literally fails on every level. And for some reason, this game has undying popularity among some. And
people that occupy mental houses and
No.
or have had lobotomies.
It taps into an element of gaming that is almost never touched upon, and it's the purposefully made B-grade film of games, where you have a premise that's so ridiculous and the execution so poor that it loops itself back around and becomes good.
You think that's what it is it?
That is what it is. That is why this game has popularity.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't like it. The game, literally, on the overworld, when you're walking around in the GTA perspective, you get called upon to do a mission. And for the beginning was you have to try to get to your female Yeti. So you go to the toll bridge, but the toll bridge costs money. So you have to go find a newspaper. And when you find the newspaper, you find a job at a soup kitchen. But the soup kitchen doesn't pay. They only pay in tips. It's all so absurd. It's all so ridiculous that it's kind of funny, right? It's because when you get to the soup kitchen, it's a mini game. And that's really the basis of this game is you have an overworld GTA style map and 4 mini games that you use that map to get to. In the first one, the soup kitchen, you play a tapper style game where patrons are coming and they either want steak, hamburgers, or pizza. And you have to pick up the plates with that food and chuck it at the person. And if you serve them the right food before they get to the end of the counter, they'll leave a tip. But if you leave the tip there, the other patrons, as we'll call them, will steal the tip. So you have to serve these people their food, run and get the tip before someone else gets it, run back, get more food, serve it.
So you served this food in, what did you say we were serving it at?
Soup kitchen.
That's right. And what were the choices of
That's
food?
right. That's pizza, steak, and hamburgers and fries.
At a what?
Soup kitchen.
Okay.
That's right.
And what is not one of the choices?
Well, Aaron,
what's not one of the choices in the soup kitchen?
So you're saying
it's soup.
You're saying that's more ridiculous than the soup kitchen? They're giving you tips, and that's how you make your money.
Well, then again, you are a Yeti serving. I'm just saying.
So once you collect enough money to pay your toll, you cross the toll bridge, and then you're in another section of the city, and you hear the call, and you go, but you find out it's another male Yeti who's also trying to get to the female Yeti, so you beat him up. And then he jumps on a car, and he rides it away, and he says that he's gonna get there first, and he would conquer you if you met him in the disc arena. So you can't just go to the disc arena. You have to find a Kit style car, the same kind of car he jumped on, Kit as in from Knight Rider, and jump on it, and then a UFO picks you up because it recognizes you as an unregistered Yeti, and the UFO takes you to the disc battles, and that is your second mini game. It's sort of like dodgeball on an ice rink where you fight other Yetis. So when you get past that, everyone's
Clearly,
still with
I didn't
me.
get this far.
Everybody's still with me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. After you get past that, you travel to yet another part of the city, where you are. Oh my gosh, what are you trying to do from here? Where you go to the sewers, and the sewers mini game is a direct ripoff of Tubin. I mean, there's even little flags that you go through.
Tubin was a cool game, though.
This is not. This version of Tubin is horrible. So you go through the sewers and you make it through on your tire, and you come out the other side, and now you're in suburbia, the suburbs of the city, and you hear the female Yeti's call, and you go to the farm that she's living on, but you stink too bad because you were a Yeti in the sewer. So you have to wander the suburbs for some kids playing with a sprinkler, and then they hose you off. And then you can go, but to impress the female Yeti, you have to show her how awesome you are at chicken plucking. And you have to throw chickens, sort of on like a basketball mini game, into the chicken processor. And then she becomes your love. And you go off happily ever after.
So you went all the way through the game. You beat
I did not. I actually could not get past the Yeti ice ball, but there's a password feature and the few things gimmicky things you can do. I experienced it all.
I will give you, I was going to rip you to shreds over your idiocy,
That's
but
right.
I will give you credit. Yeah, and the fact that you suffered through this that far, I will say I am impressed at your dedication to ARG Presents, that you went that hard to get to the end of this game.
I feel at ARG we're here to entertain, but
Uh-oh.
we're also here to educate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I will have to say, I did think long and hard about the purposely so bad it's good aspect of video games, and I don't think that this pulled it off. And we were kind of talking about Army of Darkness earlier. The Evil Dead movies is a perfect example of them doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much Army of Darkness, because at that point the franchise was big enough that they could go off and just keep doing their own thing. But Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2, classic, but it was classic because it was so hammy. That's where Urban Yeti was shooting for. The Sharknado type of effect.
Uh-huh.
So absurd that you have to laugh at it. The problem is the execution is so poor. The controls are so bad. The music is on this GeoCity style loop where they, if you remember back in the day,
yeah.
where they just loop audio in the background.
And even if sound quality is of a GeoCity style.
It was, if they would have just, well, and I think in some aspects they really tried hard. The absurdity of the game is fun. You're a Yeti, and like, if the crowd sees you, they try to take pictures, and if you punch them, then they get aggressive. That kind of stuff is cute. That's kind of campy. But you have to pull off proper execution to get campy fun to work in a video game. My perfect example of this is River City Ransom, where the game is so absurd, where you're a gang and the things you can eat in the restaurants. I don't know if you've ever played it or not. But the game is so absurd. The things you can do in it are so crazy and kind of West Side Story-ish. But the execution of the game is perfect. It's spot on. It's fun to play. It's interesting to play. This went a different direction. It tried to be campy. It tried to be fun. But the execution was just not there. What was your opinion? Did you see any of that, or did you just play this and think it was a horrible game?
I played this and thought it was a horrible game.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
The name I thought was enticing.
You're right.
All right, number one, when I think of a Yeti, I don't think of a brown Yeti. I think of a white Yeti, like from the Arctic, from the Himalayas.
Sure.
So right out of the gate, Urban Yeti didn't make a lick of sense to me. He's Urban Bigfoot's what he is. He's not Urban Yeti.
Okay, well, some people
Yetis are like snow Bigfoot.
Well,
now listen, I used to watch In Search Of.
Even the opening credit crawl said some people call him Bigfoot.
Right, but so then the game should have been called Urban Bigfoot.
All right.
But anyway, Urban Yeti is such a stupid title. I thought, this might be my kind of stupid. Well, it's not. This is like, the funny thing is about this game, the GTA style overhead probably took some amount of programming prowess.
Yeah, because it
looks
scaling.
okay.
It has good scaling, up and down scaling.
But when you actually, the game starts up with these static screens, and they're so horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst Flash game would have a better opening screen than this. I mean, they are generic.
Yeah.
They look like just some guy painted them up. They're just the dirt worst.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then when you start the game and you're the Yeti and you're wandering through this town, it's also the dirt worst. Like, you're beating guys. The game is real glitchy.
Mm-hmm.
You can get caught in corners.
Yep.
You can, it's so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
The premise, I love stupid. I'm a big Mystery Science Theater fan. I'm a big Riff Tracks guy. This premise I will say, this would be right out of a Mystery Science Theater. The premise of this, but the execution of the mini games and the way it is, I didn't like them. I got to the first mini game, I didn't like it. I didn't like the way all the stuff looked. I didn't like the music. How this got put on a cartridge. This is on a cartridge.
Yep.
Is baffling.
Yep.
It is truly. I'll tell you what, the seal of quality was long gone when this thing came out, man. This is the seal of no quality. They should have put that on here. And this goes to prove that the Game Boy Advance, for all of its brilliance and all of its technological genius and all of the fine games, has a system ever existed with more crap shovelware. I mean, there may be by now the Wii, the Nintendo tradition of great first-party support with the world's most god-awful crap coming off on it. I mean, this goes to show you that anyone with a couple nickels to rub together can somehow have a cartridge produced.
Yep. That's true.
And that is this game.
Yep.
It was horrible. You've continued your 3 or 4 week old tradition, and this makes bowling look like the best game I have ever played.
Well, and I agree with you on all fronts.
You can't deny it.
No, I agree with you on all fronts. But this game, like I said, it made me look at an aspect of gaming that is never explored.
I will say that I was going to look at some gameplay footage and stuff on Urban Yeti. There is dangerously little about the Urban Yeti anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
No, there are I didn't see any reviews. I saw some minor gameplay. Like, no one could stand to play this for any length of time. I didn't see any playthrough. I didn't see nothing. I mean, you're on your own.
Well, let me give you some reviews here. IGN, pretty respected outfit, 7. They gave it a 7 out of 10. Right?
I just lost my respect. That's unbelievable.
TotalGames.net gave it an 84 out of 100. GBA Central gave it an 8 out of 10.
What?
Game Zone gave it a 7.5 out of 10. A quote from Game Now magazine: Urban Yeti is far one of the wackiest, zaniest, most bizarre games out there, and it rocks. We could sit and play this game forever. I told you, it hits a campy vibe with some people that they look past how
it looks, plays, and is.
Well, yeah.
Listen, I'm the camp freaking master, man. And I'm telling you, bad is bad. This is the top banana of GBA. If you're a fan of the Amigos, this game was worse to me than Top Banana, which is one of the worst we ever played.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So let's see what the public says. Because you know how the public needs to talk with money, right? If you don't talk with your money, it's nothing. True. Loose cart for this game, $30. Boxed cart, not sealed, just a boxed cart with full instructions, $120. And these aren't, this is what we want, this is what people pay for it.
Clearly, this game didn't have a lot of high numbers sold.
I could not find a number sold.
They never sold a single one.
No.
I believe you.
Well, it got great reviews. It got it's got a cult following of sorts out there. That
this is a cult that should be wiped out.
Well, it is an unexplored realm of gaming. And really, can you think of a game outside of indie games? Because indie games are kind of bringing this style of game back. The campy, but they're doing it right.
Okay.
They're doing it with proper gameplay, but they still keeping that campy feel. But AAA titles never go towards this kind of stuff.
Well, the concept of it was sort of cute, but it's just the execution was just god.
Oh, it was.
It's just god.
It was.
Awful.
But I'll tell you, tonight when I watched the sun set over the West Virginia hills, and I glare out across our town, I'm going to be looking for that Urban Yeti.
Well, I'll tell you what. I would check the dump. That's where the first place I would go. After a review like that,
yes,
we need a beautiful, lovely palette cleanser, and this palette cleanser is called the Retro Roulette.
Let's do it.
Sucker.
You want to spin this week, or you want me to spin?
I will hold, and you may spin now. Last week, of course, we picked this fine. We've destroyed the Game Boy Advance for everyone.
Now, by the way, the Game Boy Advance is awesome. Go check out some of the best games.
So now, let's move this thing right up to the front.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Look at that. Now, Brent, I'm going to let you spin the wheel. We've added the XEGS Atari system. All right, that's good, beautiful. Now, spin the wheel, make the deal, Brent.
All right, here we go.
Come on, something.
Yes!
There it is. There it is, folks. Tell them what we've won.
The Odyssey 2.
Odyssey 2. We've been waiting for a while.
Oh, man. Childhood system. I love this thing.
So we're going to be playing games on the very old school, incredibly old school, Magnavox
yes.
Odyssey 2.
A system we both owned as children.
I still own our original Odyssey 2, and we'll be using it to play whatever game. And luckily for us, I have an Odyssey 2 multi-card that will let us play pretty much every game ever released in its day. Now, believe it or not, me and Boat reviewed an Odyssey 2 game that got ported over to the Amiga called Killer Bees, which was a tremendous game. And so it just goes to show you that these old systems can offer some excellent gameplay despite the limitations of sound and video.
I agree. Quest for the Rings is still one of the most ambitious games I've ever played.
And if you're just as a little primer, myself and the Boat, we did a play on the Quest for the Rings game. It's on the Amigos Retro Gaming channel on YouTube. And it was the most complicated shoot Boat ever did. He had like 6 cameras, and it's a combination video game and board game.
Yes.
Which was awesome. It's the first time I'd ever got to play the board game appropriately, and we had a lot of fun. So that's a good primer. I don't think we're going to be playing anything we've played on previous shows. So we'll pick some new stuff for the Odyssey 2. But that should be a good time. I know you were jonesing for some O2. So any parting thoughts?
No, I think we are good for this week.
I'd like to apologize for Brent's picks this week.
Oh, no, they've been awesome.
And I even slightly apologize for mine. In the universe of Game Boy Advance, I don't think we did them any favors
games.
This week, but we will try to do better next time, shall we? So, until next week when we review Odyssey 2 games.
2.